Hello everyone, welcome to VetGuru. This is your tutor Dr. Dixit Kumar. So till now in this gynecology we discussed that in females there are different type of embryonic structures which at certain age will differentiate into mature reproductive organs. That age is known as the puberty or sexual maturity. Okay, so in puberty and sexual maturity we discussed that there will be an age at which there will be there will be and estrus, or there will be a physiological changes that occurs in the body that leads to puberty or sexual maturity. Okay, so in female that change or the first sign of a puberty or sexual maturity is known as estrus, and that entire period is known as estrous cycle. Okay, so in this lecture we are going to discuss about the phases, what are the stages of estrous cycle, and what are the factors that make the estrous cycle. Okay, so if we talk about estrous cycle, it is the rhythmic sexual behavioral pattern in females which starts at one estrus and end at the another estrus. Okay, in humans it is called menstruational cycle, and in animals it is known as the estrous cycle. Okay, so it is basically controlled by the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. Okay, there are certain hormones which at certain age will respond to differently in the response to any etiological agent or in response to hormones. Okay, now the important question comes here is the duration of estrus, because every year they are asking about the questions, the duration of estrus cycle in different animals. Okay, so first on one side they will give the list of animals, on another side they will list the period of estrus cycle. Okay, so you should be aware what is the period of estrus cycle in different animals. So if we talk about cow, the estrus cycle is 20 to 21 days. In buffalo it is also 20 to 22 days or 21 days. In goat it also varies from 20 to 21 days. In sow, it varies from 20 to 21 days. In mare, it lasts for longer for 20 to 24 days. In ewe, it lasts for 16 to 17 days. In bitches, it extends from 6 to 7 months. And in queen, it lasts for 2 to 3 weeks if not mated. Okay, so this entire chart is very, very important because every year question is asked on this topic. Okay, so you should remember how much is the duration of estrous cycle. Now, this estrous cycle is having different phases: metaestrus, estrus, then diestrus, then anestrus. Okay, so there are different phases. Out of this entire estrus cycle, there is a particular duration at which the estrus phase occurs, at which the fertility occurs. So if you talk about animals, so duration of estrus cycle is 4 to 5 days in mouse, rat 4 to 5 days, hamster 4 days, and guinea pig it is 15 to 17 days. Why I mentioned this? Because in domestic animals and sometimes lab animals also they will mention in the options. Okay, so you should be aware what is the duration of estrus cycle in different animals. Now in short, if we talk about the duration of estrus cycle is shortest in ewe, but if we talk about lab animal, it will be shortest in the hamster. It will last for 4 days. In domestic animals, bitches have the longest estrus cycle, and in lab animals guinea pig has the longest estrus cycle. Okay, so this is the duration, how much period the estrus cycle will occur in the domestic animals as well as lab animals. This is very, very important because every year they are asking question on this point. Now this entire estrus cycle, or depending upon the estrus cycle, animals are classified into different categories. First one is based on occurrence, when the estrus cycle is occurring. Okay, so the animals in which the estrus cycle occurs only once a year, so that animals are known as the monoestrus animals. For example, wild animals and bitches. Okay, in those animals estrus cycle occurs only once a year. But there are some animals in which the estrus cycle is regular, so such type of animals are known as the polyestrous animal, like our domestic animals, cow, sow, etc. Okay, there are some animals in which the estrous cycle will occur multiple times, but only in specific breeding seasons. Okay, so such type of animals are known as the seasonally polyestrous animals. For example, this is because there is a hormone, that is melatonin, released from pituitary gland, sorry, pineal gland. So it will modulate the GnRH release, and as you know, this estrous cycle is under the control of hormones. Okay, this is very important because this question was asked in ICAR PG 2023. In which of the following hormones control the estrous cycle in seasonally polyestrous animals? Okay, so you should remember that melatonin control the regulation or regulate the estrous cycle in seasonal polyestrous animals. Now, depending upon that, animals are further classified. Like some animals like mare and cat, they require more lighter period. Okay, so such type of animals are considered as the long day breeders. Okay, so they require longer duration of light hours. But some animals like sheep, goat, buffalo, and camel, they require short daylight period, means they require winter season or the darker period, so they are considered as the short day breeders. Okay, so this is the classification based on occurrence, how the estrous cycle is occurring in the animal, whether it is occurring once a year, whether it is occurring regularly, and if it is occurring regularly, how it is dependent on the light or the photo period. Okay, now comes based on ovarian activity, how ovary is regulating the estrous cycle. Okay, so some animals are classified as spontaneous ovulator. Spontaneous ovulator means in these animals ovulation occurs spontaneously during the estrous cycle. Due to LH surge, as soon as the estrous cycle will occur, suddenly the ovulation also occur. These are all domestic animals fall under the category of spontaneous ovulators. Okay, sometimes cattle and buffalo also ovulate in meta-estrus. Okay, because this question is also asked, the ovulation in cattle or buffalo occurs. So in those animals, ovulation occurs after the end of estrus, 16 to 18 hours after the end of estrus. This question is also very common. From last 2 to 3 years, they are asking this question directly. Okay, but in some animals, ovulation is triggered by coitus. Means first male and female will copulate and then the ovulation will occur. Such type of animals are known as the induced ovulators. Okay, for examples, camel, rabbit, cat, mink, and ferret. Okay, so these animals are classified as induced ovulators because in these animals ovulation is occurring due to induction by coitus. Okay, so this is the how animals are classified based on estrous cycle. Now this estrous cycle, like you learned, okay, in cow and buffalo it is for 20 to 21 days, ewe it is 16 to 17 days. Now this entire estrous cycle is divided into two phases. First follicular phase and another is luteal phase. Suppose if I am drawing you a chart, suppose this is a estrous cycle. So estrous cycle means there will be estrus, means ovulation is there, means this entire cycle is controlling the ovulation. So half of the phase in which the egg is prepared to ovulate. Okay, egg is preparing itself to ovulate. So means egg is synthesizing itself. So follicles will come, then entire structure will form. So this stage is known as the follicular phase, in which the follicle synthesis will occur. Now suppose at the middle of estrous cycle there will be ovulation. So after ovulation, egg will depart. So whatever the remaining structure is there, that will acquire the shape of a lutea. So that is known as the corpus luteum. So that is why the second phase of estrous cycle is known as the luteal phase. Okay, so this is how a estrous cycle is divided. So one by one we will discuss. So first phase, as I discussed, it is known as the follicular phase, and it acquire about 20% of estrous cycle. So it is from the period of regression of corpus luteum ovulation. Suppose now here corpus luteum disintegrate to the next ovulation. This cycle is known as the follicular phase. Okay, so ovarian structure is considered as a Graafian follicle, and main hormone during this cycle is estrogen. Okay, it is very, very important, so you should remember. So what happens due to increased estradiol? As soon as the puberty will achieve in the female animals, estradiol concentration will increase. So as the concentration of estradiol increase, there will be positive feedback, LS surge will occur, and ovulation will occur at the end of follicular phase. Now in this entire phase there will be two stages. One is proestrus, where there will be follicular growth and rising estrogen, and then comes the estrus, where the LS surge occurs and ovulation will take place. Okay, so this is the follicular phase in which the follicle synthesis occurring. Now at the end of follicular phase there will be ovulation. So the second phase start, that is known as the luteal phase. Okay, so it is the stage from ovulation to luteal regression, means corpus luteum when it will regress up to that stage, this luteal phase will last. Okay, the ovarian structure in this condition is known as corpus luteum, and the main hormone is progesterone. Okay, what progesterone will do? It will enhance the negative feedback mechanism on GnRH and reduce the concentration of LH and FSH, and also prevent new ovulation during the luteal phase. It also has two stages: meta-estrus, in which there will be corpus luteum formation and progesterone concentration will rise, and another stage is diestrus, in which corpus luteum will be fully function and there will be higher concentration of progesterone. Okay, so this is very, very important how this estrous cycle is divided. I told you, again I am telling that this is estrous cycle, this is follicular phase, this is luteal phase. This follicular phase is again divided into two category: proestrus and estrus, and this luteal phase is also divided into two category: meta-estrus and diestrus. Okay, now sometimes this question is also asked in very simple pattern. He arranged the stages of estrous cycle in correct manner. So you have to correct that proestrus, estrus, diestrus, meta-estrus. Okay, so you should know the basic pattern of estrous cycle. Estrous cycle is very, very important because every year they are asking at least 2 to 3 questions on estrous cycle. Whether they can ask on the duration of estrous cycle, or they may ask about the stages of estrous cycle, about the classification of animal, which are the following are induced ovulator, which are the following are spontaneous ovulator. So you should remember. Now, during this entire stages of estrous cycle, like proestrus, estrus, diestrus, metaestrus, animal will experience some clinical signs by which we can detect, okay, the animal is in estrus period. So now comes the stages of estrous cycle and how the events occur in those estrous cycle. So first stage is the estrus, that is known as the stage of sexual receptivity. So in this, the main hormone will be estradiol, which causes behavioral signs and the reproductive tract changes. So what happens? There will be standing heat, mating occurs, peak estrogen and LS surge, and which causes the ovulation. Okay, ovulation timing in cattle is generally 24 to 32 hours after the onset of standing estrus, means after the end of estrus, the ovulation will occur. That is why the AI should be done 12 hours after the first heat sign. Okay. Then there are species duration in this estrus period. Like for in cattle and buffalo, it lasts for 12 to 24 hours. In sheep, it lasts for 24 to 36 hours. In goat, it lasts for 24 to 48 hours. In sow, it lasts for 48 to 72 hours. In bitches, it lasts for 9 to 10 days, and in mare, it lasts for 4 to 7 days. Okay, so this is the estrus period. How the estrus period is helpful for the further reproduction. Okay, because fertile if the fertile reproduction is there, then only the animal is able to produce continuously. Okay, then comes the second stage, that is known as the metaestrus or the transition phase. So this stage varies from the ovulation to the early corpus luteum formation, and the ovulation in cow occurs 12 to 14 hours after the end of estrus, like I told. Okay, so in this stage there will be follicle, corpus luteum formation will be there, progesterone start rising and estrogen will start declining. Sometimes in cattle there will be metaestrus bleeding. Okay, that is due to sudden drop of estrogen. Okay, so this question is also very important. Sometimes this question is asked in the examination ki which of the following animal is having metaestrus bleeding, or they can ask ki metaestrus bleeding occurs due to drop in the concentration of which hormone. So estrus you learned, now metaestrus. Now comes the another stage, that is known as the diestrus or the luteal phase. So it is the longest phase of estrus cycle, and progesterone, key hormone is the progesterone in this. So sometimes the question is asked ki corpus luteum is maintained by the which hormone. Okay, so remember progesterone is the hormone that maintains the corpus luteum. Okay, so in this phase, the uterus will prepare itself for pregnancy. Female is not receptive at this stage because already ovulation occurred. And if suppose no conception occurs, the corpus luteum will regress, and that luteolysis will be performed by PGF2 alpha. And then comes the last stage, that is proestrus, that is also known as the building of phase, because in this stage the animal is preparing itself for the another cycle. Okay, so it is from the corpus luteum regression to the onset of estrus. Progesterone hormone will drop because of corpus luteum regression, and there will be increase in the concentration of FSH and LH, which causes follicular growth and increases estrogen, and at last ovulation will occur. Okay, so in this stage there will be transition from progesterone dominance to the estrogen dominance, obviously, and follicle will mature and prepare itself for the estrus cycle. Okay, in bitches there will be proestrus bleeding due to hyper, and in this condition there will be hyperemic vaginal mucus. This question is also very important. So you know the difference. In cattle there is a metaestrus bleeding, but in bitches there is proestrus bleeding. Okay, so these important points you should remember. Now this was about the how these estrous cycle are proceeding from one by one stages. Now there are some features that sometimes this estrous cycle, what we are knowing, so this estrous cycle sometimes it will not occur, or it may be stopped due to some reasons. So that time this condition is known as the anestrus. Now this anestrus may occur due to any reason. Okay, like in mare, in winter season there may be anestrus because they are long day breeders. In ewe, in spring and summer it can occur because they are short day breeders. Okay, so anestrus means the absence of estrus behavior. Now there are some reasons due to which estrus can occur, like first one is lactation anestrus. During lactation the reproduction will suppress, so that is known as lactation anestrus. In some buffaloes there will be silent heat, or we can know as the quiet ovulation. So ovulation occurs but there is no behavioral sign. Sometime in buffalo or heifers the estrus behavior will go unnoticed. Okay, so such type of condition are known as the silent heat or quiet ovulation. Okay, now you are aware that there is a estrus cycle. There are two phases of estrus cycle, and there are 4 stages of estrus cycle. Now during this estrus cycle, why this estrus cycle is important for us? Because by determining the sign of estrus only, we can be sure, okay, whether the animal is productive or not productive, so that we can perform AI or natural insemination, and the cycle of reproduction will goes on. So it is very important that we should be aware about the sign of estrus in behavior. This topic is very important because questions are also asked on the sign of estrus. Sometimes they will directly give you the questions ki okay, standing to be mounted or the sign of estrus in cattle is. So they will give you signs. So in different animals, there are some peculiar signs of estrus. So if you talk about cattle and buffalo, there will be bellowing, local vocalization, restlessness, and attraction to males, and there will be chances of homosexual behavior, means mounting or standing to be mounted is the definite sign of estrus in cattle. So this question was asked in ICAR 2022. Okay, standing to be mounted is the characteristic sign of estrus in which animal? Okay, sometimes in buffalo there will be temporary teeth engorgement during the estrus cycle, and that phenomenon is known as the doka. Okay, in sheep or eve there will be tail weighing, peculiar bleating, and there will be harum formation. Harum formation means whatever the sheep that will be in heat, they will come together and they will form a group, and that group is known as the harum. Okay, it is Arabic term used for the females. Okay, then in goat it will be tail flagging. In mare there will be clitoris wrinkling, and in show there will be back pressure, or you can say the lordosis. Okay, whenever you will touch the back of a sow that is in heat, it will raise it back. Okay, so that back riding test is also used for the detection of heat in the sow. Okay, so that is also very important. Okay, then in queen or cat there will be vocalization, means they will cry, and there will be lordosis response will be there, like similar to sow. In bitches there will be sanguinous or bleeding, that we call a vaginal discharge, and that discharge will be somewhat greenish. Okay, so that is another important point that is important for the sign of estrus. Okay, then in this estrus there will be some behavioral effect also that will proceed for the reproduction, or that enhance the reproduction. Okay, so suppose if a group of female is in estrus or anestrus, introduction of male into that group will help in the synchronization of estrus to that animal. So that is known as the male effect, means suddenly we can go for the male exposure, which may have some the puberty or breeding stage. Okay, so that effect is known as the Whiten effect. Like I told, whenever a male is introduced into the female group, especially this term is used for in context of mice, so there will be enhanced secretion of GnRH, so that is known as Whiten effect. Okay, similar to this Whiten effect, Eves, that is known as the Ram effect. Okay, then sometimes due to, if you are keeping females or a large group of females for a longer period of duration, there may be somewhat a physiological anestrus in them, because absence of male will cause the suppression of hormones in them. So that condition is known as the Lee-Boot effect. Okay, then comes the Bruce effect. Bruce effect is the pregnancy block in females when exposed to a new male. Okay, when they are exposed to new male, their pregnancy will block. So that condition is known as the Bruce effect. Another effect is known as the Vanderberg effect. Okay, so Vanderberg effect, what happens? Due to male urine pheromones. In males, the male urine, there will be pheromones. So what the pheromones they will do? They will cause early puberty in prepubertal females. Okay, so that condition is known as the Vanderberg effect. And last comes the McClintock or Wellesley effect. So it is the synchronization of menstrual cycle in women living together. Whenever the women's or the female animals, they live together, so sometimes their estrous cycle will also get synchronized. Okay, meta-estrous cycle. So that is known as the McClintock or Wellesley effect. Okay, so these are different type of effect that are specialized for the estrous cycle. Okay, so you should remember these effects, because sometimes they may ask about the terminologies also. Okay, now in farm practices, this estrous cycle detection is very important, because at that time only we can plan the production procedures or the reproductive capability of animal. Okay, so there are different type of heat detection aids that are used in the animals. Okay, so first one is the behavioral or the visual response. Like we can go for the detection of the estrus behaviors, or whatever the sign animal is showing during the estrus, so we can go for them. For example, like I told, in cattle there will be standing reflex. Okay, there is a tail paint, means suppose we can apply the paint on the tail. So suppose if any animal got mounted, the paint will be rubbed. So that is another ad we can use for the detection of estrus. Another is teaser bull. Okay, so we can use epidymomactized bull to detect the estrus. Okay, then there will be copulatory cry. Okay, so vocalization of queens during or after mating, so we can detect, okay, if it is having vocalization, means it is ready to mate or it is already mated. Okay, and this copulatory cry occurs because the tom penis contain the papilla, penile papilla. Okay, so due to those papilla there will be copulatory cry. Okay, other devices we can go for the mechanical or device based techniques, like heat mount detector, calmer patch we can use. They are pressure sensitive and attached to tail head. Okay, so they changes color on mounting. Suppose an animal is mounted on another animal, so the color will change, so we can detect, okay, it got mounted, means it is showing the sign of estrus. Then there will be chin wall mating devices. They marks female mounted by the teaser bull. and another is a speculum examination. Means this technique is basically used in mares, so we can check the appearance of cervix and vaginal wall, so we can get an idea, okay, the animal is in estrous cycle. Okay, so these are some mechanical and behavioral responses. Then comes the some clinical examination test like cervical mucus test. Best test used is spin barcade test or stretchability test. Okay, so this stretchability test is basically used to detect how much mucus is inside the cervix or how much mucus is inside that reproductive organ. Okay, so what is the procedure of this spin barcade test? We will collect the mucus, we will make it on slide, and we will place it on cover slip, and then we will pull apart. If suppose mucus is watery, means already ovulation occurred, and if mucus is not watery, means ovulation didn't occur. Okay, so if the thread are of greater than 7 centimeter, means the animal is in mid estrus. Okay, so spin barcade test is very important. Question are asked on spin barcade test. Okay, then another test used is fern test or arborization test. So this test is also somewhat similar to spin barcade test. In this, we will make a smear of cervical mucus. We will air dry it and observe under microscope. And the appearance under microscope, we will grade it. So suppose there is a linear fern. Linear fern means there is low estrogen and it is categorized as 1+ grade. 2+ grade means concentration of estrogen is increased and there will be palm leaf pattern. Then if suppose 3 grade is there, moderate estrogen, and 4 way, if suppose the arborization is there, the whatever the mucus we collected, it is somewhat viscous, so we can get that it is peak estrogen and it is categorized on the 4+ grade. Okay, so these are different tests which we can use for the detection of estrus. Another important discharge that is seen in the animals is the lochia, that is known as the postpartum discharge. So in normal condition, it will be reddish gray, mucoid, and contains blood and endometrial glands. Okay, so it occurs around the 3 weeks of postmortem in cow. And suppose if metritis occurred, so this discharge will be somewhat watery, brownish, and it contains foul odor. Okay, so this is how you can detect the estrous cycle in the domestic animals. So till now you are aware, okay, what is estrous cycle, what are the phases of estrous cycle, what are the stages of estrous cycle, and how we can detect the estrous cycle in different animals. Now this estrous cycle, again and again you are seeing that there is increased estrogen, increased progesterone. So this entire estrous cycle is under the control of some hormones. So how these hormones control the estrous cycle, that we are going to discuss now. So the major hormones that control estrous cycles are the gonadotropins. Okay, so one by one we will discuss. So first one is ECG or PMSG. Okay, so what PMSG will do, they will mimic the effect of FSH and stimulate the follicular growth. Okay, so these hormones have greater half-life than FSH due to the concentration of sialic acid. These both 2 points are very important because questions are asked on these points. Okay, and in mares, this ECG is secreted from the endometrial cups. Okay, so this is how we can induce estrus in animals by administration of ECG or PMSG. Okay, so question was asked, if PMSG mimic the effect of LH, FSH. Okay, so you should remember. Then another important hormone is FSH. So FSH we can go for single or multiple injections. It is having short half-life and it stimulates the follicular growth. Then comes the SCG, which mimic LH, luteinizing hormone, and it induces ovulation. Okay. Then comes some GnRH analogs like buzerlin, which is GnRH analog, and it stimulates the release of both LH as well as FSH. So what it will do, it promote the recruitment and selection of new dominant follicles and help in the follicular phase of estrous cycle. Then comes the progesterone. So progesterone like melanogestrone acetate, flugestrone acetate, or methyl acetoprogesterone, what they will do, they will suppress the effect of LH and prevent ovulation and help to prepare the endometrium for the next cycle. Means they will maintain the corpus luteum and mimic corpus luteum action and inhibit the uterine contractions. Then comes the estrogen. Estrogen, there are some hormones, estrogen conjugates like synchromet B. They are used as ear implant. So they induce corpus luteum regression and also enhance the progesterone response. Okay. Then comes the prostaglandins like a PGF2 alpha. Okay. So they causes corpus luteum regression during the responsive phase. And another hormones that are very important, that are dopamine agonists. Okay. Best example is cabergoline. Okay, so basically they reduce the prolactin level and also help to terminate the pseudopregnancy. Okay, pseudopregnancy, as you know, pseudopregnancy is basically maintained by prolactin. So these cabergoline hormone help to terminate those pseudopregnancies, and they are also used to induce the estrus in bitches. Okay, so this is how this entire estrous cycle occurs. This lecture is very, very important because I will tell you either question will be asked on the duration of estrous cycle or the stages of estrous cycle. Like I told, in duration of estrous cycle, they will ask about the match the following type, list 1, list 2, animal duration of estrous cycle. Second comes the phases of estrous cycle. So follicular phase, luteal phase. They may ask about the dominancy of hormone. Which are the following hormone dominant in follicular phase? Which are the following hormone dominant in the luteal phase? Okay. Then comes the stages of estrous cycle. Simplest question they will ask that arrange the stages of estrous cycle in a synchronized order. So proestrus, estrus, diestrus, metaestrus. Like this you have to arrange. Then comes the sign of estrous cycle. So any of the animal they will ask is standing to be mounted is the characteristic sign of estrus in which animal, or the characteristic sign of estrus in so is standing to be mounted, or we can tell as the lordosis response. Okay, heat detection aid and the different hormones. So every topic of this lecture is very, very important from the examination point of view. Okay, in entire gynecology this is one of the most important lecture. Okay, so remember it. So this was all about this lecture. Thank you, have a good day.